Always check us out at one of our rebroadcast outlets, including WJHC 107.5 FM, Jasper, Florida, WDDQ 92.1 FM, Adele, Georgia, and WLBB 1330 AM, Carrollton, Georgia. All part of the Talk America Live radio network. Proud to be part of that. Also check us out at klrnradio.com. You can also check us out at High Plains Talk Radio, Sackheads Media, and of course, lanterns.buzz, the Lanterns Radio Network, also be part of that up-and-coming rising network on the internet. But if you miss any of the rebroadcasts, don't worry. You can always check us out as a podcast. We're available on multiple networks. I don't know if you know this, but we're available on Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn, Podbay, Player FM, Google Play Music, Auto Radio, which is the new project for podcasts by SiriusXM, SoundCloud, Google Play Music. I might have mentioned that already, but I don't care. iTunes, and the mighty iHeartRadio network. Let's get back to the interviews. Here's probably the biggest guest we ever landed on the show. Russ and I, at the Federation for American Immigration Reform's Hold Their Feet to the Fire Radio Row event with Michelle Malkin. Russ, this has got to be the biggest guest in the history of the show. And we've been doing this, 7 years now? Without a doubt, the best get ever.
A New York hometown favorite for sure.
Oh, yes. You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Michelle
I'm
Malkin,
so humbled.
I can't even come up with an introduction. The things I could say, conservative blogger, best-selling author, founder of so many great startups like Hot Air Twitchy. Michelle Malkin investigates on CRTV now. How many hours a day do you work? It's absolutely amazing.
This is probably the kind of trickiest illusion, because it looks like I'm working all the time, plugged in 24/7. But about 10 years ago, I decided to pull the plug on the swamp here. I was here in D.C., up and down the Acela, every weekend. And my kids were really small at that point, and I just did not want to live that kind of lifestyle where you're just wholly consumed by politics all the time. We see what happens when you do that. You end up like that crazy guy who shot Steve Scalise, right? And I just wanted to get away from that and remind myself that I wanted to be in a place where you work hard, but you play hard too. And so it looks like I'm online all the time, but a lot of times I'm tweeting from a hiking trail or fishing or at the grocery store.
and that's awesome, but it's not just that. It's that you left the swamp and your influence grew exponentially beyond the confines of this area.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. I feel blessed every day to be able to make a living exercising the First Amendment. And I think I recognized, I give President Trump absolute credit for using social media to circumvent mainstream monopolies and not being beholden to, these coastal bubbles and coastal elites. But I did see that early on, and it's why new media and alternative media were such a key part of, the development of my career, going from corporate media newspapers to TV, and then founding my own 2 internet companies. And now, of course, with CRTV, doing internet broadcasting and the kind of investigative journalism that I've always wanted to do in a visual, format.
It's your show, your control, you're calling the shots.
Mine.
But it's also that freedom to know that the product will come out the way you want it to and not be edited by somebody else who has no connection with what your vision is.
Yeah, and you know what? So many times in life, of course, we have to live and operate in other people's frames and boxes. And I certainly love the 13 years that I spent as a Fox News contributor yelling at liberals and yelling about liberals. I think it's necessary, and we have to do that.
And we've enjoyed watching it very well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And, and going into lions' dens like The View or The Today Show, and that is necessary, but it's not everything that I do. And to be able to do long-form investigative journalism, which is what the CRTV show is about. We just wrapped season 1 with 13 one-hour-long episodes each. We're heading into season 2, and I'm trying to evangelize. People complain about fake news all the time. They need to know that they have many more choices than they ever had before.
All right, so I can't think of a better place to bump into Michelle Malkin than at an event focused on immigration. Yeah. One of the first books I read right after 9/11 was Invasion. Awesome book. If you want to find it on Amazon, I highly recommend reading it. So you outline in the book the failures back in 2002 and prior to 9/11. Where are we at today?
Well, there's been a sea change, a cultural shift, and you can feel it. It's palpable here in Washington, D.C. And after tirelessly hammering our way at this message after 9/11 that we needed to treat immigration first and foremost as a national security issue, finally, we have somebody in the White House that believes that in his bones. Now, he's up against a lot of opposition and obstructionism, not just from the left, not just from the open borders funders like George Soros, but unfortunately, a lot of the Republican Party establishment as well. That's not a surprise, and it's not a battle that we have, that is unfamiliar to those of us who fought the amnesty that was tried to ram through down our throats by George W. Bush and Karl Rove. Change and reform might not happen as quickly as I wanted at 200 miles an hour, but we're getting there. And, this week we've got these two major bills trying to turn back the sanctuary cities and sanctuary states in this country, outlaws. And that really should just be the start. I don't want these to be sort of tokens that are tossed like crumbs to ordinary Americans who want to see Trump fulfill all of his promises.
We saw firsthand in the People's Republic of New York City, as we like to call it on the show, Bill de Blasio and his New York City ID, $50 million wasted to have undocumented immigrants be able to have a municipal ID. Now they're even talking about creating a separate municipal ballot so that those people and New York City ID can vote in municipal elections. It's it's bizarro land in New York City now. So while, case law and the No Sanctuary for Criminals Act can do something for funding, there's still this defiance in these entrenched urban areas that I can't see breaking at this point.
Well, Gene, you're absolutely right that the resistance exists at every level of government, local, state, and federal. And, I certainly get some consolation that we have patriots like Attorney General Jeff Sessions and, some of the leading immigration enforcement experts finally having a place and voice in the White House. But a lot of this kind of reform is going to have to take place in people's backyards. And could we please have a viable Republican candidate for mayor in New York City? What the hell?
Well,
can I say that? Sorry.
Oh no! Please listen. We are the insurgents in the New York City GOP. We're not, and we feel your pain. We're working on it.
Good.
Nicole Malley-Takis maybe, but we'll see. No money there, but whatever.
So I'm baffled here.
We get flustered when we talk about New York City.
Yeah.
But we watched old videos of Hillary Clinton and other Democrats from 10, 15 years ago, and their stance on immigration was not that far out there. Where did the left make this hard turn to where they became totally irrational when it comes to the topic of immigration? They don't want to deport criminals. They don't want to stop sanctuary cities. But 10 years ago, they weren't saying these things.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, because you're right. There are these video clips of Hillary Clinton saying that she was against driver's license for illegal aliens, even making noises about some even symbolic reform of the H-1B visa racket for foreign guest workers. And then you're right. They pivoted so hard left. I mean, it's not even worth putting adjectives in front of the left, progressive or radical. I mean, they're all just extremist, nuts, unhinged leftist. If they keep going the way they're going, we're going to have a second Trump term. There used to be, even during the Clinton years, Bill Clinton years, there were, your Reagan Democrats who were on board with the FAIR agenda. People forget that Barbara Jordan was one of the heroes. This was an African American congresswoman from Texas who talked and supported issues and positions, to the right of Pat Buchanan on immigration reform. Even Cesar Chavez was against illegal immigration.
It's
People
amazing.
don't remember that.
All the countries that we're trying to send illegal immigrants back to have more stringent immigration laws themselves than we do, and they criticize us for being uncompassionate towards these people. It's literally a world gone mad. We have to talk about the book.
Yes.
The wonderful book Sold Out that is out now. John Miano was around before, and we were listening to him.
Yes.
How did you link up with John?
So I actually met John Miano after Invasion was published. I met him at CPAC in 2003.
Everybody meets at CPAC, Russ. It's kind of what we do.
It is definitely worth networking. You never know when somebody you meet randomly will end up co-writing a book with you. So, over the years, my views had sharpened as I actually dug into the data on H-1B. It had never been sort of a premier issue for me, and it sort of had been a reflexive slogan among many many mainstream DC type conservatives to say, I'm against illegal immigration, but I'm for legal immigration, which is another empty platitude, because the question is how much and where from? And, every bureaucracy that's under siege in the Department of Homeland Security with regard to illegal immigration is just as much so with the, inflow of 1 million green cards every year granted to people from around the world. And then all of these short-term temporary programs, which are unvetted and unpoliced. 40% of the illegal aliens in this country are visa overstayers, and there's still no complete entry-exit system in place to make sure that when their expiration dates come up, that they leave. This was supposed to be one of the top agenda items of the 9/11 Commission. It's still not done.
And Trump caught a lot of slack during the campaign for using the term extreme vetting from certain countries. Right. Meanwhile, the 9/11 hijackers were all technically vetted because they were here on some official status at some point. I don't think he was that far-fetched saying we need to have something called extreme vetting, some kind of process.
Yes, and there is no orderly process. It's complete chaos. And, the people have been talking about the deep state, right, and how it is undermining Trump's foreign policy agenda. They're under siege every day from these encrusted barnacles that are Obama holdovers. We still have Clinton holdovers in the Department of Homeland Security who are undermining the men and women on the front lines. I've been talking to Border Patrol agents, not just here at this conference, but over the last 25 years who've been decrying this. And so even though we've got new people at the top, it's really those, bottom layers of people who are really just have no adherence to American sovereignty and rule of law.
It's very interesting you mentioned that, because we were talking to some Border Patrol agents during the conference, and they have said exactly just that. The people who were there in the lower and mid-management levels are now being promoted up, and the culture is being brought higher up now. And, the border agents in the field, I don't need to tell you, you've been to the border so many times, and you brought more awareness to the issue than anybody else in America, really. They are getting more and more frustrated, not only from the lack of technology, the lack of support, but now the bad actors are gaining benefit.
Yeah, and so this is a management issue, and it's a management crisis because, you think about the thousands and thousands of people that work at DHS and what kind of information that they might be leaking and what kind of memos they might be ignoring from the top down. It is a crisis overall. Look at this reality winner, right? This NSA leaker. How many of those types of people are in DHS doing the same types of things? We have no idea.
Absolutely right. Listen, we want everybody to pick up the book. I think by the time this interview is over, it's going to be a New York Times bestseller, right? If it's not already. And normally we promote people on social media, but you got everyone following you already. But Michelle, what an honor it is to talk to you. It really is. I feel like we've arrived, Russ, finally. And good luck with everything. Continued success in the future. And look forward to you coming back on, hopefully soon.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. We're actually behind friendly lines today.
Yes, but listen, you got to do branding. You know branding of all that. So thanks so much. Behind Enemy Lines. It's a pleasure to welcome probably the most accomplished author that we've ever had on the show. And that's saying a lot, because we've had people like Roger Stone on, and we've had so many different authors on the show. And, the book is Reasons to Vote for Democrats, A Comprehensive Guide, the cultural correspondent for the Daily Wire, Mr. Michael Knowles. Michael, thanks for coming on, man.
Gene, thanks for having me.
So let's immediately talk about the book. It is 266 pages of, quote, exhaustive research, getting into the mind of Democrats, progressive liberals, whatever you want to call them. Man, that's a heavy lift. How'd you do it?
Well, it's a heavy lift. I appreciate your reading the book. A lot of times on a book tour, people, they won't actually read the whole book, but it seems you read it cover to cover.
Cover to cover. And I don't know how I got through it, to be honest with you.
Well, it was a heavy lift on the research. I'll tell you that. It took a very long time to research this book. I would say it took basically my whole life. It took about as long as I've been politically active and aware. It took substantially less time to write the book. It took, if I were to estimate, about 15 minutes from beginning to write the book to uploading it onto Amazon. So that part was a little bit easier, but the response has been terrific. Obviously, when you write an academic and scholarly work, as I have, a lot of times it just will not reach the mass market. But it appears there's a real appetite to learn all of the reasons and arguments to vote for Democrats out there in the popular market. And it's just really thrilling. I think it's a great day for the Academy.
I mean, not for nothing. The biggest question that conservatives, Republicans, and those on the right have always asked about, the liberal mindset is why? Why are they the way they are? And you kind of nail it by